You're listening to the Voice of Reason. I'm Dr. Len Suputer here with Francesco Garapoli. You know, we talk about the news and freedom of the press and news that gives misinformation. And, and we've got a problem now that's new. You know, the newspapers are still coming out and they're giving lots of information out, but there are only a few sources and they seem to be saying the same thing, most of them. If you scour the news enough, you'll get opinions that are different, particularly if you look at things that come from other countries as well. When it comes to the internet, you know, freedom of the press is changing a lot. And what we've got now is a few sources that are dictating. They're like monopolies. You got Facebook and you got YouTube and Google. It's becoming a real problem.
It really is, Len. And I want to remind people, though, that you are the problem. The person is the problem. Because if you are succumbing to the few top of the
Mm.
cream choices, then it's your fault for not going deeper.
Well, that's
But,
true.
but the fact is, almost 1 billion people are on Facebook. 1 billion people are
Well,
in the Google, ABC corporations, YouTube world. So people are taking like the path of least resistance, we'll call it, to get their information.
yeah.
But this is no different than it used to be when the top newspapers were, they had the newspaper boy in the corner saying newspaper today, the top
Yeah.
story, and you would
Yeah.
go by and get the newspaper from them. So that was the same kind of thing. You took what was easiest, you read it, and you believed it.
Yeah. Well, now things have changed. You know, the internet, the monopolies are controlling things, and you try to get information on those programs, and it's up to them. They decide what they're going to take and what they don't. So what you're getting is a slanted perspective on things. You're not getting the real news. What you're getting is what they think is the real news and what they want you to hear. And who they're connected with and how they're funded is a scary thing. Where do you get
Yeah,
real news anymore?
I know. I invite everybody to look at who owns the top news networks.
Oh,
You
yeah.
should you should look just for, right, Len, just for your own edification. I did it with my parents one day, and I went down the line, and here's my parents at 90 years old. They almost freaked out. They couldn't believe that Disney and giant, sort of a military industrial complex people own it, the networks, own the machine that delivers you what you think is information. I think of Walter Cronkite must be rolling in his grave right now, the poor guy.
Yeah. Well, when you see that happen and you realize that a lot of news stations are saying the same thing. When you're watching TV, I don't care what channel you go, there are sound bites that they all use. And those sound bites are what they're trying to convey to the public. So it's not like we're getting news anymore. What we're getting is editorials. We're
Yeah,
getting the opinions of the station
opinions.
owners who want you to believe a certain thing. And then when people like you and I, we're just little people. We're trying to inform people about the work that we've done about a certain topic like the COVID-19 stuff. And then we put together a video, and then we find out that the source or where it goes is not something that's really going to allow it to be shown in its usual way. And then try to get analytics on it, and you can't. They stop you. And a lot of the time when our videos will go up, I'll look on the internet to see how many views there have been. And for the first half an hour, it's all over the place. And after that, it just suddenly stops. And you're going, what's that all about? How do we know how we're getting out to people? Well, how much of the real news is getting to them, at least from the point of view of individual people? Not a lot.
It's true. We have technologies now that not some people might not be aware of. We call bots. People have heard of bots. These
Oh,
are
yeah.
software robots. But the thing is, these are programmed to look for keywords, look for content, look for viewer responses. And when there's big peaks in viewer responses,
Mm.
all of a sudden, multiple levels of these bots go after that information and vet it out. Any video I have done on my YouTube channel about COVID now has a big stamp on it from Google that says, for more information, go to the World Health
I know,
Organization
or the
or go
CDC.
to the CDC. And you're going, wait a minute, I didn't condone that, and I have no choice. So my viewers they think that I put that there or that
Yeah.
my people put it there, but I didn't. So now I'm being misrepresented because I don't agree with a lot of that information.
Well, it's a sad
Interesting.
commentary when the news is controlled by private corporations that make the decisions about what they're going to print and what they're not going to print. And it's like a communist country. You don't
Right.
have
Talk,
there's no
please talk.
freedom.
It,
You
it,
can't.
it's just fascinating. Talk about a little bit about Zuckerberg. We were talking about that before, you and I.
Oh, he had some information. It was just scary. He said that in March, okay, there were warnings that he gave to 40 million posts that were related to COVID-19. And of those, 4,000 articles were reviewed by what he calls independent fact checkers. Well, in whose opinion is that? And so consequently, what he wants to print is what he does print, and who knows who's pulling the strings for Zuckerberg. And what about the stuff on YouTube? It's the same thing. How do you really uh, get the fairness of being able to get your opinion out without it being censored in some way or being misrepresented? And how does something actually get out to people? It depends on how the news organization is organized and what they want to get out there. So they become very, very powerful in influencing what public opinion is going to be.
Sure. Well, when the Gutenberg press came out, okay, right? We're talking hundreds of years ago. Finally, movable type
Mm.
presses were possible, and that means you could multiple print newspapers and documents. It's a big step from the scribes having to handwrite everything.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
But somebody, right? But the Gutenberg press, it brought out a lot of commentary at the time that said whoever can afford to own one of these presses is going to dictate the news.
Well, it's true.
So here we are, zoom forward into the 21st century, and we've got the same thing. We got Zuckerberg talking about saying, we don't want people to have wrong information, so we will
Right.
decide what the
Yeah.
right information will be. That's the scariest thing I've heard in a long time.
Well, it reminds me of communist China. It's the same thing there. You can't even have meetings there or convene at a time. At the time this COVID thing started, there were riots in the street. And you talk about what was going on in Hong Kong. I'm sure that the government had to be really upset because millions of people were objecting to what was happening. And what
Sure.
happened? They had this COVID thing develop, and the first thing they did was quarantine everybody. And how many of these riots have you heard since that time? Zip.
It's a very, very sad situation for friends in Hong Kong.
Yeah.
It's tough. But
What?
even my friends in Poland, I teach there every summer for a month or more. They're in their apartments right now with police knocking on their doors at random time,
Wow.
walking inside and checking to see how many people are in their apartment.
Wow.
And they can't go to the forest, they can't go to parks, but we even see in America the parks are closed. The one place where people should be
It's
going out and
that's right.
enjoying, right? So we're looking at some curious decisions now that don't make a lot of sense.
Well, they're unfortunately they are making some sense, but not the
Not to
kind of
me.
sense that you want to see. You wouldn't want your government to be undermining your freedom or to controlling what they want, what you see, because what you see is what determines how you're going to react to it. And we just simply can't have that. So here we are in a situation where we're stuck in our homes. There's no way that we're getting information we can be sure of that's right. It's you can't trust what's coming out of, at least I don't, what's coming out of the CDC or the NIH or the World Health Organization. Look at the stuff that was published about the World Health Organization in the last week. Trump found out some of the things that they were doing, and he said, "That's it. I'm going to cut off the $400 million that the U.S. is giving you." And all of a sudden, some of the transparencies of what was going on there are starting to come out. They were spending like $100 million on things that were crazy, like hotel accommodations and perks for the people who were running the organization. So it's good that we have a president that is looking after the the the, the rights of our country as we donate or give money as a philanthropic thing, and make sure that they're doing what they should be. And when you see that the World Health Organization really didn't come to the plate back in January and evaluate what was going on in China, I think they knew. At least it looks like they could have. It frustrates me that I don't see that sort of stuff in the press. You have to kind of go back and piece things together. And it's not like for sure, and that's the sad part. because where are you going to read about it? It's not going to be on Facebook. You're not going to see it on YouTube. So you have to dig through and listen to the conspiracy channels to find out what they're saying, and then try to put it into a perspective with some kind of reasonable solution.
Yeah, and when you dig, you find pieces that don't settle well with you. Like you find out how the Bill Gates Foundation funds the World Health Organization to the tune of hundreds of millions of dollars.
That's
Now,
right.
that doesn't make sense. That doesn't sound philanthropic to me. It sounds like I'm moving an agenda. Okay. It's not a conspiracy theory. If I spend a lot of money on an organization, they are beholden to me, especially if the chunk I'm paying is a very big percentage of it. And Bill Gates has got his own agenda.
Yeah.
So these are scary. So here's Trump getting a lot of frustration thrown at him and people getting angry, but you got to look at the bigger picture of it. The
Yeah.
World Health Organization, just like the Federal Reserve, these things aren't
Oh dear.
angelic organizations that people would like to think they are. We want to believe it, but Len, people got to dig and really look at the facts.
Well, that's what we're doing. So we're trying to present you a voice of reason. So we'll be back again tomorrow to talk about more. Thanks, Francesco.